Welcome everybody to Makos stuff you give along with Aleph with the Mishnah at the bottom of your base on the base. And today we're going to be discussing several topics. One of them is don't judge a book by its cover, actually. And funnily enough, story happened yesterday. A guy was outside, sees me outside, he's like, I heard there's a shir over here. I said, yeah, come, you're welcome. Pleased to meet you. What's your name? He said, who gives a shir? I said, I do. And the guy just walked off. I guess you're one of the guys with a longer beard. Sorry, the beard's short. I blew it. I would have had another guy in the shir if the beard would be longer. I'm not saying that I'm a great book, right? Probably I'm a terrible book, but like, that was classic. He judged the book by the cover. He made it all the way here from wherever he came. He came from far, I could tell. And he didn't even give it like 5 minutes. He just turned around. He didn't turn around in front of my face. He waited till I came in. I didn't see it, but the guy just vanished. Anyway, so that's what we're going to be discussing now. So the Mishnah says, Kiyetzeba, with 4 lines from the bottom, you base on base. Kiyetzeba. Similarly, Ritzach shegola le'ir miklatai. This killer, he went to his sanctuary city. V'rotzu anshe el chabdai, and the people came out to mechabet him. Oh, look at this respectable Jew with a long beard, Streimel. They came out to respect him, to greet him. They wanted to give him kibbud. They would give him food, here's lechem and mayim. I don't know, they wanted to greet him. So yoim alehem, he should tell them, hold on. Back up a second. Reitzeach ani, I'm a killer. I'm not the regular, Hasidic Shia, do you think? I'm a killer. Amrullah, if they said back to him, Afapichein, even though you're a killer, we want to be mechabed you, Kabel man, take from them, you kabel man, he can take from them. He can take from them the food, they can bring him food, whatever they're giving him, take it from them, no problem. Shenamar, it says, V'zeh dvar haretzeach. It says in the Pasuk, V'zeh dvar haretzeach, that he should tell them. The Ritzach should tell them that he's a Ritzach. We had this drasha before. Okay. Says, it's actually, before we go any further, there's a big kasha, right? Do you have to correct someone? The Gemara says if someone thinks you know 2 Mishnayos, you should tell them you know 1 Mishnah. If you only know 1 Mishnah and people think you know 2, you should tell them. If someone thinks you know a few Masechtas, you only know 1 Masech. Let's say a guy comes to town, he's a Boki in Maseches Shabbos. I know a guy like this. He spent his whole life, he Maseches Shabbos, he knows every single Pshat of Maseches Shabbos. He comes to town, people talk to him about Shabbos, and they see that this guy he's the biggest Talmud Chacham alive. If he knows the whole of Shas like he knows Shabbos, then there's no one like him. So Chazal says he has to tell them, by the way, I only know Shabbos. Don't think I'm a big Talmud Chacham, I know the whole of Shas. I'm not a Galadah, I just know Shabbos. Right? He's got to tell them. He's got to warn them. Rashi says he only has to tell them if he did something. You only have to tell someone you don't know as much that if he misled them with his own actions. Now, if you did something to make people think that you're a master Talmud Chacham, then it's called Gneivas daas. The idea is Gneivas daas. You're stealing it's considered worse than stealing money, as you tricked someone. Gneivas daas doesn't mean you trick someone. Let's say there's a certain way people dress who were big Talmidei Chachamim, and you stole their daas. You pretended you dress like a lawyer, and you're not a lawyer. You dress like a judge, you're not a judge. You dress like a policeman, you're not a policeman. It's called Gneivas daas. You trick people. So if you're tricking people into thinking that you're a Talmid Chacham, then you have to tell them. It's also, you have to tell them. Right? So that's why this guy here in our Mishnah, he comes to town, they're being mechabed him. Oh, chashuv a guy came to town. Gneivas daas, you should know Ritzach. Right? But the question is, Rashi says he only has to tell them if he did a Maisa, he tells them, look how much I know 1 Masechta. Then you've got to tell them you know 1 Masechta. But he didn't do anything. He just walked into town. Why does he have to tell them? That's the question over here. Why does he have to start announcing, by the way, I'm a killer? He didn't do anything to pretend that he's a respectable person. He didn't do a Maisa to trick them. Mm-hmm. It's mufurish. If it's their mistake, for example, if people decide, there's other Gemaras that are like this, if people decide they made their own mistake and they decided for whatever reason, you did one thing, they say, oh, this guy must be a big tzaddik. You don't have to tell them you're not tzaddik. They made a mistake. They jumped to conclusions. You don't have to go ahead and straighten everyone out to jump to conclusion. The guy comes over to me and he thinks that I'm, I don't know, the biggest bodybuilder in town. After he jumped to conclusion, he thinks I'm the best ball player. I have to say, oh, I'm not. You made a stupid mistake, right? You jumped to conclusion. I have to go ahead and convince everyone. If I'm going out of my way to convince people that I'm the number one, whatever it is, business advisor, then I should tell people, by the way, you should know I'm not, right? But if you jump to your conclusion, it's not my fault. I have to go ahead and straighten you out. That's not called Gneivas daas. I didn't steal your daas. You just made a mistake. It's not my business to correct everyone. So here, this guy, he comes into town, this killer. He didn't do anything to make people think he's a normal guy. He walked into town. He didn't do anything wrong. He's not trying to convince people. He's not trying to manipulate people or fool them. Mm-hmm. So why does he have to tell people? So what they say is, well, the Achronim are saying is that because here they're bringing him food, they're being mechaber him. It means they're bringing him food. If someone, that's very nice, a guy thinks you're amazing and he made a mistake, just you jump to conclusion. But if the guy is actually starting to bring you food because he thinks you're the God Ladar, because he jumped to a stupid conclusion and he thinks you're a nice guy, then you got to tell him, by the way, you should know I'm a killer. I'm here because I have to be here. It's fascinating what we can learn from this Gemara. It seems like very simple. Interesting sugya. So Yud Gimel Amud, says the Mishnah. Continuation. A new din. Ma'alim hayu schal al-Levim. They used to pay the Levim. These killers came to town. They would pay the Levim. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. This is the words of the famous Rabbi Yehuda. That you'd have to pay the Levim. The killers had to pay the Levim. Rabbi Meir Omer lo yayu ma'alem schal. They wouldn't pay them. What schal are we talking about? Here you asking. What are we talking about here? Take a look in Rashi. Top line in Rashi. Ha'arim malim hayu schal al-Levim sheroitzchim scheichim mehem es bate adira. They pay rent. What's this schar? Schadira, rent, right? That's the word used for rent, right? Schadira. How do you say rent in Hebrew? Schirut. Schirut is short for schadira, right? Mm-hmm. They'd have to pay rent. In other words, if this killer comes to town, he's a wealthy guy, go rent yourself a villa. If he's a poor guy, he's going to rent a small little shed or whatever, you know. You're not getting free room and board over here. You got to pay your keep. Mm-hmm. Take a look in Taisus. Top Taisus over here. Taisus doesn't like this. Pirush reitzchim abayim v'darim sham tzrichim lahalos mas v'arnoina. He's got to pay taxes. What does it mean he pays? He pays taxes. That's what it means. So the question is, does Taisus agree with Rashi? Taisus says that, of course, and l'chayru, that's the machlekes. The machlekes is, Lefi Taisus, do you have to pay taxes or do you not pay taxes? Lefi Rashi, the machlekes is, do they get free land or not? So l'chayru, what's going on here is, they used to have these communal houses in the Imrikla. Those communal houses. So Rashi says, it's a communal house. Or Lefi Taisus, maybe it's a communal house. You don't have to pay. He comes there, he gets the house for free, but you got to pay taxes like everybody else, right? The Lashon isn't mashma. The Lashon is schar. Rashi always uses the approach, use the most basic understanding of the Lashon without, being too complicated and draining the Lashon too much. It says schar. Schar is only schar dira. It doesn't mean, if it would mean taxes, it would say malim hayu misim. Why does it schar? Mm-hmm. So Rashi's Lashon fits in much better with the Lashon of the Gemara. Malim hayu schal al-Levim, they paid rent. Mm-hmm. But l'chayru Lefi Taisus, they had these communal houses. They didn't have to pay rent. The question is, do you pay taxes? So Taisus says, you got to pay taxes. You're living there. You pay taxes. Who's going to collect the garbage? Who takes care of the roads? Pay taxes like everyone else. So that's one interesting machlekes. Rashi Taisus. So says the Mishnah. V'chayzer, now after Kohen Gadol dies, he goes home. V'chayzer l'srara, he goes home, right? What does it mean? V'chayzer l'srara. Means srara means to be a sar, to be a leader. When he goes home, he becomes a sar. He goes back to his original kavod, his original glory. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's what Rabbi Meir holds. Another machlekes Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. No, he does not go back to his original glory. Take a look in the second line in Rashi. What's he talking about? What are we talking about here? Rashi says, Nasi a Rosh Beis Av. If he was the Nasi was it was like, it didn't have kings in all the Tkufa, it was like a king, it was basically the leader. He was the president, basically, or the prime minister. He was more like a president than the prime minister. It was like a lifetime appointment. He was a Nasi, basically a king, but he didn't have all the dinim of a king, So if it was a Nasi, or the Reish Beis Av, the head of a house, what does that mean, the head of a house? He goes back to become the head of a house? Like, what is it? What does that mean? What cover do you have to be the head of the house? So the Meiri says it means Reish Beis Din. He changes the gears here. If he was head of the basin, he comes back, he goes back to be the head of a basin. So you have a Machlekes Rebbe Yehuda. Does he go back to be the head of the house, or the head of the Beis Din, or back to be the Nasi? Interestingly, some people want to learn from here whether king, who's like a Nasi, is he Gaila or not? We don't have anything before that says whether king's Gaila or not. So some want to say, look, if the Nasi's Gaila, and he goes back, the king's also Gaila. Others say the king's not Gaila B'chlal, king isn't Gaila. There's a shaila. Can you prove from here whether the king's Gaila or not? Some say yes, some say no. Interestingly, we can learn from here a fascinating thing. What happens if he becomes he's a Nasi, he's the king, the Nasi, or he's the Reish Beis Din. He goes to Galus for 10 years till the Kohen Gadol dies. In the meantime, there's someone else who's the Reish Beis Din. Mm-hmm. There's someone else who's the Nasi. So what happens when he comes home?
Kick him out.
You got to kick out the other guy, right? This guy's been the Nasi for 30 years. All of a sudden, Kohen Gadol dies. The old Nasi's back in town. Now he's homeless. This new Nasi, he's on the streets. So can we prove some place we want to bring a raya from here? Let's say a guy was a chazan, kavur in the Beis Knesset. He's the chazan, he's the rav. And then he has to leave, ba'inus. He has to go. He gets sent to prison. He doesn't have the money. Whatever happens to him, he loses his voice, he's sick. And for 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, you bring in a substitute. Now this guy's the rav of the shul. He's the chazan of the shul. He's the balkaira. And this guy comes back after 20 years. He wants his position back. Yeah, he gets it back. You kick out the other guy who was a temp. He gets it back.
So maybe the machlokas is if the position is available, he can go back.
But if it's not,
what's
it's
the
dodgy.
condition of acceptance?
I hear, yeah.
I don't know.
That's the shaila. Interesting, yeah. I like it. So someone to prove from here one with the other. Says the Gemara. Omar Rav Kahana. We're going to have a machlekes now of Kahana and Rava. This din of Malehem Schar. Where does it apply? Omar Rav Kahana says machlekes b'sheish. The machlekes of Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, whether they pay rent or taxes, the fitaisus, that's in Sheish. That's in the 6 Ari Mikla. We said there was 3 in Israel, 3 on the other side of the Jordan River, where 2 Shvatim, 2.5 Shvatim live. The Masava Lachem. It says in the pasuk Lachem Leklita that these cities are to absorb. But Masava Lachem, when it says in the pasuk the city should be for you, it means Lachal Tzarchechem. That's a drasha. These 6 cities Lachal Tzarchechem. You don't have to pay rent. You come there and everything's taken care of for you. So it's a question. How do you learn the pasuk Lachem? It says these cities should be for you, Lachem. Does it mean for you as a sanctuary? You don't get killed, or Lachem? To everything, all your needs, for free of charge. Aval, but according to Rava, Abai Mishtayim, the other 42 sanctuary cities, which we said, these small 42 sanctuary cities that popped up everywhere. Divrei Akal, Remain, and Rabbi Yehuda, everyone agrees, Malem Schar. There you for sure have to pay rent or taxes. So the whole machlekes of Rabbi Yehuda is only in the 6, the big 6. Are the big 6 rent free? The other 42, for sure, you got to pay rent. Amalei Rava says, for sure, everyone agrees when it says lachem, the pasuk means for all your needs. No one argues with that. So in the 6 cities, lachem, you for sure get rent free or tax free. Ela Morava machlekes barbai mishtayim. Where's the machlekes of Meir Yehuda in the 42? The Maasov one holds Valeim Titnu. It says about the 42 cities Valeim Titnu. Besides for these 6, Valeim Titnu Arbei Mishtayim. That's the pasuk in Bamidbar, right? It says so. On top of those 6, you have another 42. Kihanach Lechlita. The other 42 are like those that they absorb. Or Maasov Valeim Titnu Kihanach Mahanach Lechotzachem Afani Nam Lechotzachem. The other 42 are also l'kol tzarchechem. When it says you have another 42, does that mean another 42 that are sanctuary cities that they'll protect you, or it means that another 42 cities that have all the same dinim and you'll get full protection? Avot b'sheish, but when it comes to the original 6, says the Gemara, divrei akal lo yoyim alehem schar. Rava will say that you don't have to pay schar. So there's a machlekes Reb Meir and Yehud in the Mishnah, whether you pay schar, and there's a machlekes in the Gemara of Kahan and Rava. Is that machlekes only in the 6, but in the 42, of course you pay schar, or is it that in the 42, or is it in the 6? The machlekes is in the 6 and 42, you pay schar, or is the machlekes in the 6? But in the 42, you definitely have to pay schar. Mm-hmm. Okay. Says the Gemara. Next line in the Mishnah is going to explain now. He goes back to his original covet. Tanu Rabbanon. It says in the Mishnah, V'shavel mishpachtai. This now is a pasuk that talks about Eved Ivri. You have this Eved who goes home after 6 years, right? The guy was a slave, it wasn't forever. 6 years he goes home. Shemitah comes, he goes home. After 2 years even, right? It says V'shavel mishpachtai velachuzas avoisav. He goes back to his family. Velachuzas avoisav, into his father's estate, or his ancestral estate. Achuzah means like an estate, right? Mm-hmm. So the Gemara says velachuzas avoisav yoshev. The mishpachta yushav. He goes back to his family. Ve'eino shav l'mashech ziku avoisav divrei Rabbi Yehuda. He doesn't go back to what his family had. We'll see what that means. He also goes back to what his family had. He goes back to his family like they had. So Rashi says, what's it talking about here? What's his family's estate? What's the difference between his house, family's estate? Rashi says, so if his father was, let's say, the Rav, he becomes the Rav. If the father was the Nasi, and these things are Yerush, the position of the Rav in the shul, right? He's Yerush it. He becomes the Rav. So this Eved, once he leaves, he wasn't Eved Ivri, it's Machlekes. When he comes home, he just goes back to his family. Does he become the Rav? He becomes the Nasi? Does he become the Av based in, or not? That's the Machlekes. V'chein, says the Mishnah, V'chein b'gaila. And the same din is true with a gaila. That this machlekes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda about the Eved Ivri, the same machlekes is true with the gaila. Kishu oimei yoshuv, it says in the pasuk, el chuzas avaisav yoshuv. He should go back. That word yoshuv is extra. You don't say yoshuv. We already said v'shav yoshuv. It's extra word. Tell me, show me yoshuv. The rabbis, it comes to include esaretzeach. This is an extra word that's coming to teach me the din aretzeach. That he also has a din of either he goes back to Srara or he doesn't go back to Srara. So, my v'chein b'gaila. So what does it mean v'chein b'gaila? Kedatanya, it says in the Brisa, Yoshev Retzech Eretz Chuzasai. The Retzech goes back to his Eretz Chuzasai, his estate, Eretz Chuzasai Hushav, Ve'ein Hushav L'mashech Zichor Avoisav. It says he goes back to Eretz Avoisav. Achuz, what does the word say? Eretz Chuzasai. It doesn't say Achuz Avoisav. Diva Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda learns from here that he doesn't get Srara. He does get the Srara. And what's it? Why would you get the Srara? Goma Shiva Sheva Mehasam. So it says V'shav by Eved. It says V'shav by Retzeach. Hekesh V'shav V'shav. Gzer Shava rather. So Memela, it's the same din. Since the Eved gets Srara, the Retzeach will also get Srara, Lefi Rabbi Yehuda. If he remains, since he doesn't get Srara, he won't get Srara. Once you make this Jereshava, they both have the same din. Okay. So the question is, does the Eved go back to Srara? If yeah, also the Retzeach, or does he not get Srara? Then they won't get Srara. So they have the same machlekes in both cases. They're adjacent. These machlekes.
The Gemara is missing, no pun intended. Because Gemara Shava, it's like Shav and Shav. Okay.
V'shav, yeah. Okay. Okay, we're going to start the new Mishnah. Says the Mishnah. This Mishnah is basically going to list all of the, not all, Taisus is going to say it's missing a couple of them, but the Chayvei Malkus. This is the name of our Masechta, Makos, we're going to discuss all the people that get Malkus. And the first half of the Mishnah is talking about Isuri Arayas, and most of them are Isuri Kores. We'll see most of the Isurim in the Mishnah are Isurim that were Kores, and if it's done with Edim and Asra, he gets Malkus for it. If there's no Edim and Asra, there's a Chiv Kores. So Eilein Elokim, these are the people that get Malkus. Habal Achaisai, someone has relations with his sister. Val Achais Aviv, his aunt. Val Achais Imai, his aunt from his mother's side. Val Achais Ishdai, his wife's sister. Val Eishes Achiv, his brother's wife. Val Eishes Achi Aviv, the wife of his uncle. Va'al Hanidah, or a woman who is menstruating. That's the word. Almana l'kohen gadol, almana, someone who is a widow. A widowy? How do you say it? A widower? L'kohen gadol, to the kohen gadol. Kohen gadol is not allowed to take someone who's an almana. Grusha v'chalutza l'kohen hadyat. A woman who was divorced, or she went through the process of chalitza, which is where the husband died without children. The brothers could either marry her or do chalitza. Either he takes her as his wife, or he does chalitza to free her to the rest of the world. So a kohen hedyot isn't allowed to marry either a grusha or a chalitza. Mamzeres, someone who's a mamzeres v'nesina li Yisrael, to a male guy, and bas Yisrael l'nosin l'mamzer. A girl, a Jewish girl, can't marry a nosin, which we said were people who came from the Givainim up north, and they were Gera Arayas, didn't do proper Geras, and l'mamzer. She can't marry mamzer either. Adkan. This is the list of the Isurim that get Malkus for relations. So the Mishnah says now something else. A man of a grusha to a kohen, chayav aleh mishum shnei shneimus. So you have this kohen gadol who takes a amana and grusha. She's also an amana and also a grusha. She's divorced and she's a widower. So chayav aleh mishum shneimus. He gets two sets of malchus, one for this issa, one for that issa, one for grusha and one for almana. But grusha v'chalutza to a kohen hedyot, a woman who's also a grusha from one guy and a chalutza from another guy. She had two marriages. One ended with divorce, one ended with chalitza. Right? Ein chayiv el mishum achas bilvad. She only gets one. This guy only gets one set of malchus. He's only over one issa. So take a look in Rashi. It's 2 lines above where it says Amon of a Grusha in the Gemara. Rashi says, what's he talking about, Amon of a Grusha? Shenis almana me'ish echad. Her first husband died, v'nis garsha, me'ish acher. And then she gets divorced from someone else. So her first husband dies, she gets remarried, then she gets divorced. So 2 strikes, she's out so far, right? So Chayiv Aleh Shtel Malkus. So this Kohen Gadol marries her. He gets Malkus.
2 sets.
Yeah.
39.
Yeah. The question that everyone asks here is: there's a principle called Ein Issa Chal Al Issa. If something has an Issa on it, then another Issa isn't Chal.
Nice.
So how can this guy get? Something can't be Issa for 2 reasons. There's already an Issa. Unless the Isurim happen at the same time. Something's also for one Issa, you can't go ahead and say there's another Issa. For example, if someone takes his the classic Gemara talks about a case of Yibum, where the woman's also to him because it's his brother's wife, but if it's also his wife's sister, so they can't both be Issa. There's only one of them that's sitting on her. Only one Issa. Either it's his brother's wife, or his wife's sister. You can't give them both punishments, right? There's only one Issa. And the Gemara discusses how you could do Yibum in that case, or why you shouldn't do Yibum. But that's the classic case. There's only one Issa Chal. So here, how can this woman have 2 Isurim? And that's why Rashi, what they explain is that's why Rashi gives this specific case. Rashi is actually coming to say that we're talking about a case where it has to be in this order. Why? Because first, husband dies. And then this woman is also to Kohen Gadol. Right? Kohen Gadol can't marry a woman widower. right? But then she's niskarsha, and the isha grusha is asa to all kahanim. So we do say, so issa is chal on issa when the new issa has new parameters. It adds new things. Since the second issa now is asa to all kahanim, not just the kohen gadol, that's why she has now two issa on her. But if it would happen the other way around, they want to say, the first she got divorced, and then she becomes almana, the almana doesn't add any new parameters of issa. Doesn't make her asa to more people. She was already asa to kohen gadol because she was a grusha. Now that the husband happened to die, that's not going to make it asa to more people. In other words, for example, if let's say, what does it mean? If there's a new issa meisif it's called, if you can't eat something because it's basa v'chalav, right? Well, that's not a good example. Let's say you can't. You're a Yisrael. You can't eat something that's truma, right? But then now it becomes treif. It gets mixed with basa v'chalav. Now it's also to everyone. So you have both Isurim. One's this a truma, one's this a tevel, one's this a. That's also to everyone. As soon as the second issa becomes also to more people, then it does sit on there. It's not like it doesn't exist. It does, because for this guy it exists. So for you it also exists. But if no one else is also now to this item, so ain't this a chalet. So that's what we want to say in Rashi. So Rashi says this case is Rashi is assuming that has to happen in this specific order. Now take a look at the next Rashi. Grusha v'chalutza. Skip one, go down to another next Rashi. What's Rashi saying? Grusha v'chalutza. Now we're going to come into a big machlekes here. What's the din of chalutza? Is a chalutza a woman that went through chalitza? Is she also min a Torah? Or is she also mid the rabbanon? To a kohen. Mm-hmm. So Rashi says, take a look at Rashi. Grusha v'chalutza. A woman that's also grusha and also chalutza. Note the Rashi doesn't say which happened first here. Ein chayiv aleya ele b'shem grusha. He's only chayiv because of the issa of grusha. Shachalutza ein ksuva ele meribuya ma'asin law. It doesn't say in the Torah chalutza b'ferish. There's no pasuk that says chalutza you can't take. We learn it. It says ve'isha grusha la'yikach. It's the extra vav or something, extra something, which we learn also chalutza. The Tanya b'kedushin grusha ein li'ela grusha chalutza menayin tamalema ve'isha. So Rashi seems to be saying is since we learn the issa chalutza from the same pasuk, it's like included in grusha. So it's basically another type of grusha. There's no new din of chalutza. Chalutza is really just a type of grusha, says Rashi. And once he's getting malchus for grusha, you can't get another malchus for grusha. Let's say she be grusha from one man, grusha for another man, grusha for another man. You're going to get malchus for each time she's divorced? No. She's divorced from one guy. Mm-hmm. Right? She's divorced. Doesn't matter if she's divorced from 100 people. You're going to give this guy now 100 malchus because he took someone who's grusha from 100 people? She's a grusha. So Rashi's saying here that since the chalutza is really just a sniff, it's a type, it's a subcategory of grusha, so you don't give her two malchus, one for grusha, one for chalutza. It's all the same thing. Right? Chalutza is grusha. It's just a different way you get the grusha. It's like a lower form of grusha. Grusha is when you married, you give a get. Chalutza is you didn't even get married, you just spit on the shoe. Right? So then, but it's in the category of grusha. It's not like a separate issa. That's how Rashi wants to learn. Take a look at Taisus grusha v'chalutza. The bottom Taisus here. Taisus asakasha. Taisus pirsha kuntras. Shum the chalutza ma'aseh isha grusha. Mashma leperusha de b'chalutza lechuda ika malkas daraisa. It implies the implication from Rashi is that if a woman is a chalutza and she marries a kohen gadol, or she marries a kohen, malkas daraisa. Right? That's the implication. Here you don't give both because it's one pasuk. But the implication is there is a malchus daraisa. This is a mistake. The issa chalutza is only the rabbanon, says Taisvis. So Tais says this is the rabbanon. And I don't know if you have the Likutei Rashi in your Gemaras, the bottom. There's like something called Likutei Rashi, who brings Rashi from other Masechtas. In the second line over there, he brings the Rashi where it says Chalutza. Aval al Chalutza lav, the Raisa la Rabbanon. Rashi himself says the Chalutza Rabbanon. And in fact, that's how the Rashash, or the Marsh, actually that's how the Marshalave wants to learn in Rashi. The Rashi doesn't mean it's the Raisa. When Rashi says we learn it from the same pasuk, what Rashi means is, it's an asmachta. Rashi doesn't mean it's a deraisa of chalutza. Rashi means it's not smachta, and therefore you don't get malchus. The pashtus is the mashmais of Rashi is chalutza deraisa. It's very hard to wiggle out of that one. The Taisus Mufur says, so Lefi Taisus, why don't you get malchus? It's Pasha why you don't get malchus. It says Taisus. Let's finish the Taisus inside. Taisus says, Ina v'hadele el tana v'chalutza agav grusha tanya. So why does it mention over here chalutza? Since it mentioned grusha, it mentions chalutza. It doesn't really mean it. Of course, you don't get malchus for chalutza. There's no such an assumption. Inami says Taisus makas mardes darbanan. Upaha kiven di gam grusha like about malchus de grusha. She deraisa. V'loy loki makas mardes darbanan. Taisus says a major yesod over here. Taisus is saying that since you're right, this guy now he did an issa darbanan called chalutza. He did an issa deraisa called grusha. So you should get both. Get makas mardes for the chalutza. Get makas darbanan for the deraisa for the grusha. Mm-hmm. Why you only give him one? So Taisus says, since whenever you do something that has the issa deraisa and the issa darbanan, and you're giving the malchus for the deraisa, you never give it the darbanan. The darbanan is just like a type of a sniff. If a guy only does the darbanan, we'll give the guy makas mardes, right? But if a guy's being over at the same time issa deraisa, you'll never slap him with both malchus. You only give once you're giving the deraisa, so the darbanan falls away. It's second degree. We can ignore that. So it's a massive chiddush. I don't know where Taisus gets this from. I guess from our Gemara. Taisus, if you learn it's darbanan, and Taisus has a mefurish Gemara that's mashba chulutz is darbanan. If you learn it's darbanan, so why don't you get both there? One's deraisa, one's darbanan. So you have to say like Taisus says, because if you get one, you don't get the other. So what is this machlekes where the chalutz is deraisa darbanan? I'll just say very briefly before we wrap up. It's a machlekes in the Gemara over there whether it's deraisa darbanan. It's a machlekes. There's two shitas. It's chalutz deraisa, it's chalutz darbanan. That could be what's going on over here. Rashi is going with this shita, that shita. Okay, have a wonderful day. Shkayach.